Commander Lee Hyun pressed his face against the cold metal of the observation deck window. Space looked different today. Usually it was just black emptiness dotted with distant stars, but now something else was out there. Something that made his stomach twist into knots. "Sir, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Park Mina from behind him. Her voice cracked slightly, which wasn't like her at all. Park was one of the toughest officers on the ship, the kind of person who never showed fear. Hyun turned around and walked to the main display screen. What he saw there made him understand why Park's voice had wavered. Hundreds of alien ships floated in perfect formation at the edge of human space. These weren't like the sleek metal vessels humans built. These ships looked alive, like giant sea creatures swimming through the void. Their hulls pulsed with strange lights that shifted, from blue to purple to green. "How many?" Hyun asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Over 300 confirmed, sir, and they're still coming through whatever portal they used to get here." Captain Kim Tae-ho stepped onto the bridge, his boots clicking against the metal floor. Everyone stood a little straighter when he entered. Kim had been fighting in space for 20 years, ever since the first alien contact had gone wrong. He'd seen battles that most people only had nightmares about. "Report," Kim said simply. Park pulled up more data on the screen. "The ships match profiles from the Vorthak Empire. Intelligence says they've conquered over 50 star systems in the past decade. No one's ever successfully fought them off." Hyun felt his mouth go dry. Everyone in the human fleet knew about the Vorthak. They were the boogeyman that parents used to scare children into behaving. Entire civilizations had simply vanished after the Vorthak arrived. No survivors, no traces left behind. "Sir, incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Jang Do-hyun from his station. The main screen flickered and changed. Suddenly they were looking at something that definitely wasn't human. The creature had 4 arms, each ending in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Its skin was a sickly yellow color, and multiple eyes blinked at different intervals across its face. When it opened its mouth to speak, rows of needle-sharp teeth were visible. "I am supreme. Overlord Krextel of the Vorthak Empire," the creature said. Its voice sounded like gravel being crushed. "Your pathetic species has been judged unworthy of existence. You have built weapons. You have shown aggression toward peaceful traders. You are a plague that must be removed from this galaxy." Hyun exchanged glances with Park. Peaceful traders? The only aliens humans had fought were pirates and raiders who attacked merchant ships. Krextal continued speaking. "However, we are not without mercy. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick. Resist and we will make your suffering last for generations. You have one of your Earth hours to decide." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in absolute silence. Hyun could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Around him the crew was looking at each other with expressions of barely controlled panic. Captain Kim walked slowly to his command chair and sat down. For a long moment, he stared at the tactical display showing the massive alien fleet. Then he pressed a button that opened communication channels to every human ship in the area. "This is Captain Kim Tae-ho of the UES Taeguk," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I'm addressing all human vessels. You've all heard what they want. They think we're some kind of disease that needs to be wiped out. They think we'll just roll over and die because they have bigger ships and scary faces." Hyun watched the faces of his crewmates as Kim spoke. The fear was still there, but something else was starting to show through. "But here's what they don't understand about humans," Kim continued. "We don't give up. We've never given up. When the first aliens attacked our colonies, we fought back. When pirates raided our trade routes, we hunted them down. When other species said we were too violent, too primitive, too dangerous to join their peaceful galaxy, we proved them right." A few crew members were actually smiling now, though it wasn't exactly a happy expression. "They want to judge us. Fine, let them see what humans are really capable of. All ships, prepare for combat. We're not surrendering to anyone." The bridge erupted in activity as everyone rushed to their stations. Hyun felt the fear in his stomach transform into something else entirely. Something hot and fierce that made his hands steady and his mind sharp. Outside the window, the alien ships continued their slow advance, confident in their superiority. They had no idea what was coming for them. The first wave of Vorthak bioships moved through space like a school of deadly fish. Their organic hulls rippled with muscles that no human engineer could ever design. Supreme Overlord Krextal watched from his flagship's command center, his forearms folded in satisfaction. The primitive humans had ignored his generous offer of quick death. Now they would learn why the Vorthak Empire controlled half the known galaxy. "Begin the standard formation," Krextal ordered his fleet commanders. "Advance in hunting packs of 12. Let them see our power before we destroy them." The alien bioships spread out in perfect geometric patterns, just like they had done against hundreds of other species. Their energy shields flickered to life, creating shimmering barriers that could deflect the most powerful plasma cannons and particle beams. These shields had never failed against any weapon the galaxy could produce. Captain Choi Jin crouched behind an asteroid the size of a city building, watching the alien advance through his ship's sensors. His destroyer squadron was hidden in an old mining field, surrounded by chunks of rock and metal that miners had blasted apart years ago. The aliens couldn't see them yet, but that would change soon. "Sir, should we wait for the main fleet?" asked his weapons officer, Lieutenant Yu Min-ho. Choi shook his head. "Those bioships are expecting us to meet them head-on, shields up, firing. Energy weapons like every other species they've fought. We're going to give them something different." He opened a channel to his squadron. "All ships, remember what we practiced. Railguns only, kinetic rounds, maximum velocity. No energy weapons, until I give the word. Make every shot count." The Vorthak hunting pack glided past the asteroid field, their bioluminescent skin patterns shifting in what their species considered beautiful formations. They had no idea that death was hiding just meters away. "Now," Choi whispered, 5 human. Destroyers erupted from behind asteroids like predators ambushing prey. But instead of the expected laser blasts or plasma bolts, they fired simple metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. The first Vorthak bioship never knew what hit it. The kinetic round punched through its energy shield like the barrier wasn't even there. The slug tore through the ship's living hull, creating a wound that immediately began bleeding atmosphere and organic fluids into space. "Impossible!" roared one of the Vorthak subcommanders. "Their weapons are primitive metal projectiles." But primitive or not, the human railguns were devastatingly effective. The alien shields had been designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving at a significant fraction of light speed. In less than 30 seconds, 3 bioships were dying, their organic systems shutting down as they leaked life into the void. Krextal watched his tactical display in disbelief. "How are they penetrating our shields?" His science officer, a creature with 6 eyes arranged around its head, frantically worked at its station. "Supreme Overlord, their weapons fire solid projectiles instead of energy. Our shields cannot stop." Physical matter traveling at these velocities. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hana was leading her fighter squadron in an attack that would have been impossible for most alien pilots. Human fighters darted between the massive bioships, like angry wasps, too small and fast for the aliens' main weapons to track effectively. "Remember your training," Hana called to her pilots over the radio. "These things are big and strong, but they're slow. Use your speed." The Vorthak bioships tried to adapt, turning to bring their weapons to bear on the human fighters. But humans had learned to fight in Earth's atmosphere, where a single mistake meant crashing into the ground at terminal velocity. Fighting in the empty vacuum of space was actually easier. Pilot Kim Ji-sung rolled his fighter upside down and dove beneath a bioship's belly, firing a spread of missiles into what looked like a vulnerable spot. The explosions tore chunks of organic matter away from the alien vessel. "Their ships are alive," Ji-sung reported. "When we hurt them, they actually bleed. I think they feel pain." This was something the Vorthak had never encountered before. Other species fought with honor, following established rules of engagement. They announced their attacks, fought in formation, and tried to minimize casualties on both sides. Humans fought like their homeworld had taught them. Earth was a planet where everything tried to kill everything else. Humans had learned to be sneaky, unpredictable, and absolutely ruthless when survival was at stake. Captain Park Soo-min brought her cruiser around the back of the alien formation while they were distracted by the fighter attack. She waited until she had a perfect shot at 3 bioships lined up in a row. "Fire torpedo spread," she ordered. The nuclear-tipped torpedoes streaked through space and detonated in a chain reaction that lit up the darkness like miniature suns. 2 bioships died instantly, while the third drifted helplessly with half its organic systems burned away. Back on his flagship, Krextal realized that something had gone terribly wrong. His hunting pack was supposed to sweep through the humans, like a wave washing away sandcastles. Instead, half his ships were dead or dying, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. "All ships, fall back and regroup," he ordered. "We need to reconsider our approach to these creatures." But the humans weren't giving them time to think. Admiral Song Woo-jin stood in the command center of the flagship, watching dozens of screens that showed the battle from every angle. The first engagement had gone better than anyone had dared to hope, but he knew the real fight was just beginning. The Vorthak weren't stupid. They would learn from their mistakes and adapt their tactics. "Sir, we're receiving communication requests from the alien fleet," reported Communications Officer Lee Sang-wook. "They want to negotiate." Song almost smiled. "Put me through to all human ships first. I want to talk to our people." The quantum communication network that connected every human vessel lit up instantly. Unlike the Vorthak bioships that relied on slow chemical signals traveling through living tissue, human ships could coordinate at the speed of light. It was like having a conversation with someone in the same room, even when they were thousands of kilometers away. "Listen up, everyone." Song's voice reached every human captain simultaneously. "They're scared now. They thought they were hunting sheep, but they found wolves instead. Don't let up. Keep hitting them hard and fast." Captain Lee Ji-ho responded from his position on the fleet's left flank. "Sir, our sensors are picking up something interesting. The alien ships aren't just communicating slowly. They're thinking slowly. Watch this." On the tactical display, Lee's ship suddenly changed course, diving toward a group of Vorthak vessels. The alien ships began to respond, turning to meet his attack. But before they could complete their maneuver, Lee had already changed direction again, swinging around to hit them from a completely different angle. "It takes them almost 30 seconds to process a new situation and react," Lee reported. "We can think and move faster than they can keep up with." This was exactly what Admiral Song had been hoping to discover. Every species the Vorthak had conquered before fought in predictable patterns. They announced their intentions, moved in formation, and gave their enemies time to respond. It was considered honorable combat throughout most of the galaxy, but humans had learned warfare on a planet where hesitation meant death. Earth's military history was filled with ambushes, surprise attacks, and strategies that would be considered dirty fighting by more civilized species. Major Shin Bo-ra was leading a squadron of assault ships toward a damaged Vorthak biocruiser. Her mission was simple: board the enemy vessel and capture it intact. The aliens would never expect such a direct assault. "Remember, these ships are alive," she told her Marines over the radio. "The corridors will try to seal themselves when we cut through. Move fast and don't stop for anything." The human boarding pod slammed into the bioship's hull like bullets hitting flesh. Cutting torches began burning through the organic material, filling the alien corridors with smoke and the smell of burning tissue. The ship itself seemed to scream as human Marines poured through the holes. Inside the bioship, Vorthak crew members scrambled to respond to the invasion, but they had evolved on a low-gravity world where movement was slow and graceful. The human Marines, conditioned by Earth's crushing gravity, moved through the ship's corridors like armored lightning. Sergeant Nam Ki-tae kicked down a door that looked more like a sphincter muscle and found himself face to face with 3 Vorthak warriors. They were tall and elegant with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. In a fair fight, they might have been dangerous, but Nam didn't fight fair. He rolled a flashbang grenade into the room and waited for the explosion. When the aliens were blind and deaf, he and his squad moved in with simple kinetic weapons that punched through their armor like paper. "Bridge secured," Nam reported. "These creatures are tough, but they're not ready for close combat with humans." Meanwhile, Captain Park Soo-min was demonstrating another human advantage, the ability to use anything as a weapon. The Vorthak fought with specialized bioweapons designed for specific purposes. Humans could turn a mining laser into a cannon, or use industrial explosives as ship killers. "Engineering, I need you to overload the fusion reactor in our number 3 cargo hold," Park ordered her crew. "Sir, that will create an explosion equivalent to a nuclear bomb," her chief engineer replied. "I know. Load it into a cargo pod and shoot it at that bioship formation. Sometimes the best missile is the one nobody expects." The improvised weapon streaked toward the alien fleet and detonated in a ball of plasma that vaporized 2 bioships and crippled 3 others. The Vorthak had never seen anything like it. On his flagship, Supreme Overlord Krextal was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. His tactical computers were designed to analyze and counter known fighting styles, but humans didn't have a fighting style. They had hundreds of them, switching between tactics faster than his bio-neural networks could process. "Supreme Overlord," his science officer reported, "we have identified 17 different human combat strategies in the past hour. Every time we adapt to counter one approach, they switch to something completely different." Krextal's 4 arms trembled with rage and fear. What kind of creatures are these humans? The answer was becoming clear to both sides of the battle. Humans were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They had learned to be adaptable, unpredictable, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. And now that knowledge was about to win them the most important battle in their species' history. The battle had been raging for 6 hours when Admiral Song decided it was time to end it. The Vorthak fleet was wounded but still dangerous, like a cornered animal that might lash out with deadly force. He couldn't let this drag on any longer. Too many human lives were at stake. "All ships, this is Admiral Song," he announced over the fleet communication network. "We're implementing Thunder Protocol. I repeat, Thunder Protocol is now active." Across the human fleet, captains who had been waiting for this moment finally allowed themselves to smile. Thunder Protocol wasn't just a battle plan. It was humanity's secret weapon, something they had been preparing for years but hoped they would never need to use. Commander Namgitai received the authorization code on his heavy cruiser and immediately began powering up systems that most people didn't even know existed. His ship looked like a standard military vessel from the outside, but hidden in its cargo bays were weapons that could crack planets in half. "Fusion charges armed and ready," reported his weapons officer. Target selected. The Vorthak bioships had clustered together for protection, thinking their combined shields would keep them safe. They had no idea that humans had spent decades learning how to break apart asteroids for mining. The same tools that carved up space rocks could easily destroy alien warships. Nam's ship fired what looked like a simple cargo container toward the enemy formation. Inside that container was enough fusion explosive to level a city. When it detonated at the center of the alien cluster, the blast tore through bioship hulls like tissue paper. "A direct hit," Nam reported with satisfaction. 7 enemy vessels destroyed, 3 more severely damaged. But the real surprise was still coming. Captain Bai Su-jin had been quietly maneuvering her converted mining ship into position behind the main Vorthak fleet. Her vessel wasn't built for war, but it carried the most powerful industrial equipment humans had ever created. "Planetary excavator online," she announced to her crew, targeting the enemy flagship. The excavator was designed to bore through solid rock and metal. It fired a concentrated beam of energy that could cut through the core of an asteroid. When that beam hit Supreme Overlord Krextal's bioship, it went through the living hull like a hot knife through butter. Krextal felt his ship dying around him. The excavator beam had severed major organic systems, and biofluid was leaking into space through wounds that couldn't heal. Worst of all, the ship's neural network was screaming in agony, broadcasting its pain to every other bioship in the fleet. "All vessels, emergency retreat," Krextal ordered. But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. Major Shin Bora and her Marines had been waiting for this moment. As the alien bioships tried to flee, human assault craft moved in for boarding actions. These weren't attempts to capture ships. They were search and destroy missions designed to eliminate any chance of the aliens regrouping. "Remember your training," Bora told her Marines as their boarding pod smashed through another bioship's hull. "These corridors are alive. They'll try to trap us, crush us, or flood us with poison gas. Move fast and trust your equipment." The human Marines wore sealed combat suits that could survive in vacuum or toxic atmospheres. Their weapons were simple but effective. kinetic rounds that punched through alien armor without relying on complex energy systems that might fail. Inside the bioship, Vorthak crew members tried to mount a defense, but they were facing soldiers who had trained for combat in every possible environment Earth could provide. From Arctic wastelands to tropical jungles, from underwater to high altitude, humans had learned to fight anywhere. Sergeant Park Minjun kicked through a membrane wall and found himself in what looked like the ship's bridge. 3 Vorthak officers turned to face him, their forearms raised in surrender. "Smart choice," Park said, keeping his weapon trained on them while his squad secured the area. Similar scenes were playing out across a dozen bioships. The Vorthak, bred for conquest through superior technology, simply couldn't handle close-quarters combat with creatures that had evolved on a death world. Captain Kang Min-seo watched the tactical display as the alien fleet collapsed. Bioships, that had seemed invincible just hours ago, were now drifting helplessly, their organic systems shutting down to prevent further damage. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple enemy vessels," reported her communications officer. "Accept their surrender but maintain weapons lock," Kang replied. "I don't trust them not to try something desperate." She was right to be cautious. One damaged bioship suddenly accelerated toward a human cruiser, clearly intending to ram it in a final suicide attack. But Captain Cho Jae-sung was ready for exactly this kind of trick. "All stop reverse engines," Cho ordered. His ship backed away from the charging bioship while firing everything it had. The alien vessel Dissy antigrated under the barrage, its organic components scattering like confetti. That was the last act of defiance from the Vorthak fleet. One by one, the remaining bioships powered down their weapons and broadcast surrender codes. The creatures who had terrorized half the galaxy were beaten, and they knew it. Admiral Song looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of disabled alien ships. In less than 8 hours, humanity had achieved something no other species had managed in decades of warfare against the Vorthak Empire. "All ships cease fire," Song ordered. "The battle is over, we won." 3 months after the battle that changed everything, Admiral Song stood in a place he had never imagined he would see. The Galactic Assembly Hall was enormous, with representatives from over 200 different species, sitting in curved rows that rose toward a crystal dome ceiling. The air hummed with dozens of different languages being translated in real time. But today, for the first time in galactic history, everyone was listening to a human. "Honored delegates," Song began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "I stand before you not as a conqueror but as a protector. 3 months ago, the Vorthak Empire threatened to destroy my species. Today, that empire no longer exists." A ripple of whispers ran through the assembled aliens. Many of them had paid tribute to the Vorthak for decades, sacrificing their own people and resources to avoid total destruction. The idea that this threat was simply gone seemed impossible to believe. In the holding facility beneath the assembly hall, former Supreme Overlord Krextal watched the proceedings on a small screen in his cell. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides as he listened to the human admiral speak. The proud creature, who had once commanded hundreds of bioships, now wore simple prisoner clothing and ate basic rations. "I don't understand," Krextal said to his cellmate, a Vorthak science officer named Kexmore. "How did primitive creatures defeat our empire so easily?" Kexmore, who had spent the past 3 months studying human history and culture, looked up from the datapad he was reading. "They're not primitive, Supreme Overlord. They're survivors. Their entire planet tried to kill them for millions of years, and it made them into something we couldn't handle." On the screen, Admiral Song was explaining the new reality to the Galactic Assembly. The Vorthak believed that might made right. They conquered worlds because they could, not because they should. Humanity rejects this philosophy. We will use our strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Captain Kang Min-seo sat in the human delegation area, watching the faces of the alien representatives. She could see fear, hope, suspicion, and curiosity all mixed together. Some species were clearly terrified that humans would simply replace the Vorthak as galactic bullies. Others seemed hopeful that they might finally be free from oppression. Tall, thin alien with blue skin and 6 arms stood up in the Zilarian section. Admiral Song, the creature said in a voice like wind chimes, how can we trust that humans will not become like the Vorthak? Power corrupts all species eventually. Song nodded respectfully. A fair question, Ambassador Zelnara. Let me show you something. The main display screen lit up with images from human colonies throughout the galaxy. Instead of military bases and weapons factories, the scenes showed schools, hospitals, and farming communities. Human children played alongside alien refugees in parks and playgrounds. This is the human colony on Kepler 442b, Song explained. 6 months ago, it was home to 5,000 humans. Today, it houses 15,000 beings from 12 different species. They're Vorthak refugees who lost their homes when we dismantled the Empire's slave camps. The images continued, showing humans working side by side with aliens to rebuild destroyed worlds. Human engineers teaching former Vorthak subjects how to repair their bioships. Human doctors treating injuries that had been ignored for years under the Empire's rule. Commander Li Hyun, who had been present at the first contact with the Vorthak fleet, was now running a rehabilitation center on the former Vorthak capital, world. He spent his days helping former Empire soldiers learn how to live without conquest and domination. The hardest part, Li explained to a group of visiting diplomats, is helping them understand that strength can be used to build instead of destroy. The Vorthak were taught that only the strong deserve to survive. We're showing them that the strong have a responsibility to help the weak. Back in the assembly hall, Song was wrapping up his address. Humanity asks for nothing from this assembly, except the right to continue protecting those who need protection. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to make sure no one else rules it through fear and violence. As the Admiral's words echoed through the chamber, Captain Park Soo-min smiled to herself. She remembered the desperate hours before the battle, when everyone thought humanity was doomed. Now human ships patrolled trade routes that had been terrorized for decades, and former enemies were becoming allies. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a single species was granted the authority to act as protector of smaller civilizations, not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstrated courage and compassion. As the assembly session ended, representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation. They wanted to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchanges. The galaxy was changing, and everyone wanted to be part of it. Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin, now promoted to captain, received a message from Earth. The news networks were calling it the most important day in human history. Children were already learning about the Battle of the Vorthak fleet in school, and recruitment for the space service had increased by 400%. But perhaps the most important change was happening in the minds of both humans and aliens. The galaxy had learned that humans were not to be underestimated, and humans had learned that their greatest strength was not their weapons or their tactics, but their willingness to fight for others who couldn't fight for themselves. The Age of Empire was over. The Age of Protection had begun.